have you always been the sort of person that will put themselves out there and just see what happens? Is that something that you have to learn over time?
Oh, yeah, good question. I find it hard. I find it hard really to do that, to put myself out there, even though this whole thing is a lot about that. I know. Um, and I think, well, because when I was a kid, I was doing all this music and I did acting. So it became this thing that you kind of just had to do. Like if you wanted to do those things, you had to uh get up there and just believe that you could
Yeah,
do it. And I can remember all sorts of experiences where things went wrong, or like I forgot the end of a piece that I was supposed to be playing and it was just absolutely horrible. But all of those experiences, I think, made me more able to just think of putting yourself out there, or speaking in public as being a thing that you can do, and you just need to practice, prepare, and not overthink it,
bec-
which is hard.
because 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 some people as soon as they say the first words, they're like out there and they're very charismatic and entertaining, and some people it takes them a good couple of years to find their voice, or
Mm,
it can be like a certain interaction can help somebody to find their voice.
mm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I was always like, again, I think with being an only child, I was always like around adults and learning to talk to them and all that sort of thing. But I think honestly, it was something that I learned. I don't think it's I think I always liked to listen to what other people were saying, and I always wanted to learn things from listening and talking to people. So I think being able to be curious about what other people are saying is actually how I feel more comfortable in kind of public environments. I still find it hard to be uh I, I hate the idea of being self-important and being like, oh look, I'm so special. You've all got to like look at me and think what I think is important and all that. That was always something that is, I think it's quite British to not want uh to not push it. It's a bit more American to be like, I'm the most important person in the room. Listen to me. So yeah, not all Americans, obviously. But yeah, so I think that it was something I had to learn, and that kind of confidence in public. It comes and it goes, Anthony. Like some days, yeah, I feel like everything's good, and I am on top of the world, and it doesn't matter if people, you know, are watching and don't like me, which is always going to happen. And some days, and I feel like most people will. I feel as though it's all going to look positive, and then some days, yeah, I can't. I You just got to get on and do it. You don't necessarily feel great about it.
You mentioned that you were like because you were an only child, yeah, and you were like sometimes you would end up speaking to people that are way older, and you like
Yeah.
you like to hear what they had to say. I'm very similar to you in that sense.
Mm.
So why do you think as people we like to do that? Because I just think sometimes, yeah, you can be curious, but there's definitely a balance there. So, for you personally, how do you find that balance?
The balance between being curious about what
But
other people are saying, and then
being curious, but not being too evasive. Is that the right word, evasive? Like, you know what I mean? Not, not being too nosy. Let's say that.
I don't think you can be too nosy. Like if people, first of all, I think if people want to, people's mainly like to talk about themselves, right? Because it's the subject they know the most about. And usually if you ask them about themselves, they'll feel like you're interested. And if and I think I'm really not into sm just talking. away from work as well, and just in day-to-day life. Like I'm not really, small talk is important in some scenarios where you're trying to just keep everyone relaxed and like not going too deep or anything. But if you want to have a really good conversation and feel like, you've communicated with another human being, I don't think you can be too nosy as long as you're asking questions or being curious based on as long as it comes from a good
Yeah,
place. And the other person always has the right to say in any conversation, in a friendly conversation or in a work conversation or on air, the other person always has the right to say, oh, actually, I don't really want to, can we not talk
yeah,
about this? And I'm never going to say, screw you. Why aren't you talking to me about this? I just, it's up to them. But if you're interested and you'll want to ask people things and understand them better and get their perspective on things, I don't really think you can be too nosy as long as you create the right environment.
oh, because sometimes it can be hard for people to find that balance between being curious but also being too intrusive on somebody else's business. So as you say, it's all about reading the room, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. But also just if you come across as somebody who is, if you are sincere and if you're, doing it for the right reason and you're trying to be, good and friendly and doing your best, then I don't, if people take offense to you being curious about what they're saying, then I think that's on them. I don't think
Yeah,
that's on you.
yeah, I completely agree with that. So I also heard you say in other interviews that you did like travel radio, so you did like travel reports and things like that.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So so obviously so obviously what you wanted to cover sport. So do you think it was important for you to to go to, to go another route, to go another route rather than being so hot headed that you said that you said le- that you said no, I want to do sport and that's it. Because sometimes people can be so stubborn that
Mhm.
that, that they turn down opportunities just because it might not be what they want to do. So they turn down opportunities that could help them.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, in my case, the travel thing was one of um a number of different things that I was doing at that time. So it wasn't like a full-time job, it was like a shift thing. So I was doing that and I was doing work at ITN, like doing voicing highlights, 33-minute highlights for uh various, I can't even remember, like I think it must have been championship football mainly. And I was doing announcing at Wembley, which was really fun. So I think the point was is always sport and live broadcasting and well, live broadcasting was the target, which is now the thing that I kind of specialize in, but broadcasting generally is the thing in sport that I was focused on. Um, so the point of the jobs that I was doing each place was to think, how is this going to help me to reach that aim of becoming a good natural broadcaster who in a live environment, which sport is, there's always stuff changing and going wrong and being exciting and being unexpected. That's why we love it so much. In that environment, how can I make sure I'm as well prepared as possible for when I get the next opportunity and I get the chance to broadcast live or to host sports programs. And so the point about the travel job at that stage was that that was the best way of being live on the radio for a period of time, for like many, the shift would be like 3 hours or something. You
Yeah.
wouldn't be talking the whole time, but you'd be on the radio on and off throughout that shift. And that in an early stage of your career, it's not easy to get that much on air time. So that was the point of that one. That was like, how can I learn to talk in a natural way and not feel stressed? And that was the purpose of that one. So everything, it's a case of finding the things that you think will contribute to your aim, and as you say, not being too close-minded about what those things might be.
So, so to anybody that could be checking out this interview that wants to get into broadcasting, would you recommend for them to just try different things just to get the practice of? I know it's different with YouTube now, but I still think you should try different experiences so you so you can have a bit more practice and a bit more experience. Would you agree
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I'm even Anthony, I'm writing that down so that for my students that I can tell them what you said. Yeah, I think that the best thing really, if you can, is to find somebody who can give you a bit of somebody that you trust, or that is in a position who has seen a lot of broadcasting or in the space that you want to be in, and get their view. Because I got on a internship kind of thing. It was I can't remember how many weekends. It was a whole load of weekends working for BBC London radio, and the guy in charge there, Pete Stevens, he would help train you and send you out and let you do interviews. And I mean, it was also like, in fact, I hosted an event a few weeks ago with Martin Yole, who was I'm a Tottenham fan, as I think you know, and he is a big manager for us, and very loved. And he was in fact the first manager I ever asked a question to at work, a first football manager, because he was managing Fulham when I started on this training thing, and you were just sent out with your little bit of kit, and you were allowed to ask questions to the managers at the press conferences. And I thought this was the most unbelievable, exciting thing. Anyway, side point. This guy, the guy in charge at BBC London, yeah, he didn't have any like regular work for us. I think there were two interns, but he helped us with all this training, and he introduced us to people. And at the end of that course, I just asked him, what sort of areas do you think need improving? And he said the same thing to me. And I said, well, where do you think I can get that? And he sort of asked around and suggested this travel thing and the announcing. And so what was cool about that was that he had made these suggestions. I had then followed up and asked a whole load of other people what they thought. And what it meant was that I was pretty sure I was contributing to the ultimate aim, by doing these little bits of work. You can't be sure. It might not have worked. Or I might even have gone along and found I didn't like to do it. That's possible too. But I think the more you can do, exactly as you say, to chip away at the kind of areas that you think you're interested in, then the better.
And as you said just a second ago, finding somebody that's in the same field as you and approaching them for advice, it, it can't hurt.
It's the
What
best.
but
Yeah.
what I would also say is, if they give you advice, don't don't take it as gospel, because everybody's story is different.
Mm.
Obviously, obviously, yeah, obviously, if somebody giving you advice, obviously take it under advisement. But what I'm saying is, everybody's story is different, and what worked for you, what worked for them, might not work for you, might not work for you, and vice versa.
Totally, yeah. And I think I suppose that's the point maybe I should have made a bit clearer is that wasn't this guy Pete. He wasn't the first person I approached for advice. I approached a whole load of people and I wrote them all down. I put them in like in an organized spreadsheet of people that I'd talked to. And so I looked at all of their advice and I thought, well, look, I've only got because I was working full time, so that I could afford rent. And I was like, okay, what have I got? Where can I do this? What's the best use of my time? And I don't know. I'm sure some of it was not right, and I could have done better things, I'm sure, but gradually it felt like I was making progress, and I think that's really important when you're trying to do something you really like, is just that sense that you're making progress, you're improving at the job, and you are meeting people who are also excited about what you're excited about.